Okay, so welcome, Starla, and thank you so much for agreeing to speak with me about your first-hand experience with ovarian cancer. Um, Maybe to start off, you could share a bit about yourself as well as your ovarian cancer diagnosis, any recurrences you've had, and treatments you've received.
Yeah, thanks for interviewing me today. So I'm Starla, like you said, and I was actually diagnosed with a rare form of ovarian cancer when I was 23. My type is called granulosa cell tumor, and it is very rare. At the time of my diagnosis, my oncologist really had no idea how to treat it. I have had five reoccurrences. I'm currently in my fifth reoccurrence. I've had multiple surgeries. I've done chemotherapy twice. And currently, I'm kind of in an in between where I'm on a medication that is hopefully going to slow my tumor growth, if not, kind of buy me a little bit more time in between reoccurrences.
Okay, thanks. So, one thing I'm sure a lot of people wonder is whether you had any symptoms before you were diagnosed, in retrospect, and if so, which ones you had. And I think when you talk about it, I also want to know how long you were experiencing them before you went to the doctor. What was your doctor's reaction because you're only 23? And what was the process of getting diagnosed? How long did it take?
Right. So I was 23 and I actually had not had a period in about a year. And that was with my first my first diagnosis. That's what it was, is that I hadn't had a period. And so I had been going to my family doctor probably every month or so and telling him, like, I'm not having a period, something's wrong. And his immediate reaction would be to give me a pregnancy test, tell me it was negative, and then send me on my way. And I'd come back the next month and say, I'm still not having a period. He told me stop having chocolate, cut out the caffeine, maybe stop working night shift versus day shift, just kind of giving me all these different possible reasons for why I wasn't having a period. But at the end of the day, it wasn't coming back no matter what I had followed that he had told me to do. My mom actually had suggested to me that maybe I see a gynecologist because if I wasn't having a period, then that meant I wasn't ovulating. And if I wanted to have children one day, then we should probably figure out what was going on. So that was probably close to a year later that I got in to see a gynecologist, and she actually did an internal ultrasound. And from there, she found a cyst on my ovary. And that's kind of where the ball started rolling. She found the cyst, she monitored it for about 3 months, and in that 3 months, it had grown even bigger. So from there, she did the surgery to remove the cyst. And at that time of the removal, she didn't feel that it was cancer. She, in fact, had told my parents after the surgery that it was just a regular ovarian cyst and that I could,
Mm.
go on living my life as I normally would have. Obviously, through biopsy, it ended up being cancer. Yeah.
Okay, so it took you more than a year basically to
Yeah, from
figure
start
out
to
what it
finish.
was.
Hmm.
Okay. Was this a total surprise? Like, has anyone else in your family had ovarian cancer, um, or breast cancer or any of those related cancers?
Right. So I'm actually a first generation of cancer in my family. There's no history of any type of breast or ovarian. And it really came as a shock because at that time, I was actually probably what I would say is the healthiest that I had been in my life. I was at the gym 5 days a week,
Mm.
doing yoga, eating healthy, just really, aside from not having a period, I was really healthy. And I think that's what really puzzled my family doctor as well, is that there was really no reason for me to not be having a period. So the fact that it was cancer just really came from left field.
Can you describe how that felt like at the time, besides being shocking?
Right. So I remember I was at work and my the gynecologist had called to tell me that it was cancer, and I wasn't able to go in to see her because I had just started a new job. It was a Monday to Friday. So I guess she just made the decision to tell me over the phone. And
Oh,
I remember hearing the words, I'm sorry, it's cancer. And then I don't really remember processing anything else. I worked at a daycare at the time. So I remember I just went and I took my break, and I just really sat there not even knowing what to do. So I remember I called my
Mhm.
mom and I said, "So I have cancer and I think I'm gonna go home now." But it was just like I heard the words, but I just couldn't connect to what was said. And after that, it was really, really scary for me because, being that young, being told you have cancer, I don't even think I knew what ovarian cancer was, to be honest with you. Like, it was terrifying. I didn't know if I was going to live or survive. I didn't know what my next steps would be, surgery, chemotherapy. I
Mm.
really, it was just like walking in the dark, so to speak.
So I guess we didn't totally touch on this before. Like, what kind of treatment did you get that first
Right.
time?
So after the cyst came back as being cancer, I ended up having another surgery where they then removed
Mhm.
the ovary and the fallopian tube. And from there, I went on to do my first round of chemotherapy. And after that, I it had wiped out the cancer, so it did what it was supposed to. I was
Mhm.
technically NED, which stands for no evidence of disease. And I stayed like that for about 5 years before I had my first reoccurrence.
Okay. So you did touch on how you were so young. And for those who don't know, the average or typical age for ovarian cancer patients is around, late 50s, early 60s being diagnosed, whereas you were only 23. So I'm wondering if you could comment more on how it impacted you, firstly, being so much younger than most of the women who would have been around you in the clinic. And then the second is having a rare type of ovarian cancer. So a rare type of a rare disease already. So maybe just share some thoughts on those.
Yeah, I remember just in general being the youngest person at the cancer center when I would go to get my blood drawn or go for chemotherapy. And I just remember so desperately wanting to see my face. I wanted to see somebody that was my age with no hair and that was sick. And when I looked around, it was all people significantly older than me. Um, and then when it came time for me to like look for a support group, I had realized I was ready for that. I think I went to one meeting and then I never went back because again, it was all women significantly older than I was. And I just wanted that connection with somebody my own age that was dealing with losing your hair, the loss of fertility, all of that kind of stuff, navigating your early 20s now with this, diagnosis. And so it was really difficult. And um, I wonder, had I had somebody that was my own age going through that, that I could have maybe had to just as like a sounding board or like to bounce things off of, that maybe it would have been different for me and how I, went through treatment.
Mhm.
And then in regards to it being so rare, it's been very difficult, especially in the beginning, because the numbers were so few. My mom tells a story of when we met with my first oncologist that they really didn't know what to do. So they pulled a medical journal off the wall, and there was only a paragraph this big on my type of cancer. And so looking at that and then deciding how to treat my type of cancer, it was really scary. And my mom really advocated for me at that point because I had just shut down altogether. And so she was the one doing all the research and then presenting things to the oncologist and reaching out to doctors in the States and just really trying to grasp at straws to see what our next move should be. Um, I guess in this sense, having an online community with women with my type of disease has been really helpful because then if I don't know what my next step is, I could go to that community and say, like, hey, I've done A, B, and C, it's not working. Like, what should I do now? And it's nice to have that, just again, like from a rare disease kind of standpoint.
Yeah. And you mentioned that your mom was your advocate, and clearly you've really become an advocate in the last few years, especially. Um, you're very active on social media. You
Mhm.
openly share your experiences on TikTok in very sometimes brutally honest posts and other times kind of funny, dark humor posts. So has this helped you? Has it helped you make new connections with younger patients going through similar experience? or is it just an outlet? So please tell me about that as well.
Yeah, I think I started it at the beginning of the pandemic as just I kind of jumped on the app and I scrolling through and I thought, I want to upload about ovarian cancer. And so the first video that I uploaded regarding my symptoms, I didn't think that anybody would even see it. And then overnight, like the time of people viewing it just kept growing as opposed to the videos that I posted that had nothing to do with cancer. So that was my sign that I could use my platform to educate, inform, advocate. And so from there is where I kind of started. And it's almost therapeutic to me being able to post. I'll be thinking of something and then I'm like, man, that's really dark, but it's also really funny. So then I'll put it to a video, and then a lot of people, they're going through the same thing, it's funny, or even something similar, think it's funny. And then, posting the educational ones, whereas like, these are the symptoms, this is what to look for.
Mhm.
I've also done like, come along with me to a CT scan, or this is how to prepare for a PET scan, and talking about like the bowel issues and things like that. Again, that people would think are funny, but then also I think people may be going through that. It kind of gives them the permission to laugh at it as well, and to know that they're not alone in what they're going through.
Yeah, I think what you're doing on there is amazing. As you know, I like every single post. Um, so I do want to also showcase that you've been advocating at the government level too. So recently you were involved in advocating for continued research funding in your home province of Saskatchewan. I guess I want you to tell people about that experience, as well as from your perspective, what you think researchers need to be working on to make a difference and improve ovarian cancer outcomes.
um, Being given that opportunity to be able to sit down with the Minister of Health, and um, I was really nervous at first because it was such a big deal, and I felt really honored to be chosen to be able to share my story, and just to be able to be really vulnerable, and to, you know, like I always say, I want to put a face to the disease.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know anything about ovarian cancer, and if I'm sharing about me and I'm meeting you, then you know my name, and that my name is connected to ovarian cancer. And so it was very powerful to be able to sit and share my story, and then just to sit and with Tanya and Stephanie, and just to be able to, you know, discuss, like research, and discuss what we feel is important, and getting to really just, I guess, like what I think is important, and like what I think would be the most beneficial. And I know that in my time, I won't ever get to see it, just the way my cards have been dealt. But I think that a screening tool for ovarian cancer would be the most important, because like I said, it's too late for me, but my friends with daughters, or my niece, for example, like just how, to me, like how cool would that be to just have
Mm-hmm.
that screening tool done, and then it just avoids everything that
Yes.
people like me have had to go through. And so that was one of the things that I brought up when I was meeting with the Minister of Health, was that I think that even research towards a screening tool would be, so I think would be so cool.